Generally, on this channel, I speak about massage as many times it's a good way to reduce your stress levels. However, today I'm speaking about something else will also help you with your stress levels if you're having difficulties in managing your budget and you need to have some more money at the end of the month. So today I'll be helping you to create a budget for this year. So why do you need a budget? Well, if you have a budget in place, this will lead to you saving more, spending less, and helping you to achieve the dreams or the projects that you have for the coming year. So which are the steps that you need to know to be able to start with a budget? Well, I work with two budgets. One would be generally for fixed costs. So those are the costs that you know will be coming every month. So that is for the rent, that is for your mortgage, for your electricity bills, and those kind of things. But also for the variable expenses. So these are the expenses that change from a month to another. For example, car expenses, shopping, travel, other accessories, and also, for example, gifts. So these would be the expenses that I would expect to have for the coming month. So what you do now is to start tracking your expenses. What does this mean? Well, either you look at your bank statements going back for 1 or 2 months and you track every expense. So that means you write down everything that you have spent on food, on shopping, on your car expenses, and so forth and so forth. But otherwise, going forward, what you do is that either you look at your credit statements if you're always using your bank cards, and then you do the same thing, or if you, when you go to the shops, every time you take the receipt so that you can then put down on paper exactly what you have spent in every different categories. So generally the categories, I color them in different colors. So if I spend something, for example, within the medical spheres, let's say for my gym or for my health, going to the doctor, going to the pharmacy, I highlight this in yellow. So then when I add everything up, I know that all the yellow items are in one category. So for example, I have another category, which is food expenses, which is green. So that would be, for example, for groceries or eating out. And some people divide this into two categories for eating out and groceries. All this depends a little bit on how you're spending. It might be that you can start with one category and then you see that, oh, we're spending a lot in this food category, and you really want to know what you're spending on more specifically, then it's a good idea to have two food categories. And then the third big category is generally the transport category, where you will be putting your bills for the car, being the fuel expenses, car insurance, or any public transport costs. For me, this is a pink category. So as I said, you need to write down every expense that you do. And it's really important that you track every expense, because sometimes you think, oh, but I know what I spent on that, I'll write it down later. But then you forget about it. And then your calculation is not as accurate as it should be. So it's a really good idea to start having this habit of writing everything down. And then, of course, you have another category, which should be income. This is where you have your salary, anything that comes in every month. If you have any rent or you do any side hustle which gets you extra money, that is where you put every income. And then when you come to the end of the month, of course, then you count how much is your expenses, how much is your income, and you see if there's anything left. And I think that is enough for the first month, where the most important thing is getting used to tracking your expenses. However, going forward, you'll see, for example, is there anything left at the end of the month? And this is, of course, what you should be aiming for. Then this should go, first of all, to your savings account, or savings account for an emergency fund. What is your emergency fund? An emergency fund is a fund where you put in money so that in case anything happens, for example, your fridge breakdowns, your car breakdowns, or a medical emergency, then you have money so you don't have to take that out of your everyday expenses. Generally, what is recommended is that you have 3 to 6 months of salary for those unexpected expenses. So when an emergency happens, you won't panic about it because you don't have the money. You can take care of that calmly because you have anticipated this expense, even though, of course, you don't know exactly what that will be for when you are putting the money away. So in the beginning, I was speaking about two budgets. So this is a budget where you track every expense, but then in the beginning or a couple of days before the new month, then I start a new budget where I put whatever I expect to spend in the different categories. As I said, there are certain categories where you know that shopping might be changing. And when you've tracked your expenses for a month, then you can see, for example, which are the categories where I might be spending a lot. So if you see, for example, oh, this is in the food expenses, then you can see if you've been spending, let's say you've been spending 1,000 euros, that's a lot for your family. Then you might want to think about how could you next month spend a little bit less. Maybe just start with 900 instead of 1,000 to not make it too drastic in one go, and then work from there. I always think that it's better to start small and then build it up so it isn't too drastic, because if you say I'm usually spending 1,000 euros and the next month you're only allowed to spend 500, that might be quite difficult and you might give up very quickly. By keeping track of expenses in this way, you will quite quickly see in which categories you'll be able to save more. For example, if you see that it's in the transport sector that you're spending a lot, then you maybe could rethink how you're doing things. For example, how many cars do you have in the household? Would it be possible to just work with one car instead of two? Or is public transport available in your area? Could you take the public transport more often and maybe not take the car every day? Or be a little bit creative around this, or think, for example, do I need to shop around and see if there's maybe a less expensive car insurance? So you need to be a little bit creative, but I think that the more you will get into it, you'll find great ways to reduce those costs. For example, if it's in the food sector that you're trying to reduce the cost, then that could maybe be eating out less often, thinking about where you're shopping your grocery. Is there any place where you go where the groceries are generally cheaper, where there are more bargains? Can you look for coupons? And the more you do this, the more fun it gets, and it gets like a kind of a game, and you try to find more and more ways in how you can enhance your spending and save more. What I generally do is I anticipate big expenses. So for example, if I know that there's a car repairment that needs to be done, or that we're going on holidays in a year's time or 18 months time, and let's say that that will cost, just to use a round figure, let's say that it will cost for the whole family 5,000 euros, then in that case I'd already start thinking about that now, and a year before or 18 months before I'll put aside 300 or 400 euros, whatever the calculation will be, so that when that we reach that date I already have the money and I don't have to take it out of my monthly expenses. And in that way you're never really surprised, because you always kind of have the money before. So even for the car repairment, so think about all those big expenses that you might have coming up. If you pay your house insurance once a year, that might be a large expense. Think about it already a year before, and you'll see that it really makes things so much smoother, stressless. You really don't have to stress as much about money before, because you have it all planned out. So in a nutshell, start your budget this year, track your income, track your expenses, and then see what's left at the end of the month. Then put whatever you have to your savings account. And first of all, save for your emergency fund for any accidents, any things that needs to be repaired, like I said, like your fridge, like your car, any big expenses. And then start tracking forward, thinking about what do I need for the coming months and the years, and start putting aside a little by little, just to get all a structure around your finances. So I hope that these tips will help you to get your finances into shape, and so you can stress less about money in the future, and dream and realize all those beautiful projects that you may have. Stay beautiful inside and out, and take care until next time.